Hello, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Straight Talk with Dr. Chaz the Prophet. Subjects today is kind of the Me Too movement, but I'm going to really focus on harassment because I believe the Me Too movement is not really about the Me Too movement. It's about really folks using things to their advantage. And harassment is the key. I know the person that found the Me Too movement, or originally that phrased the word Me Too, she didn't make it popular, but she ended up benefiting behind it. A young woman, well, she's not that young. She's in her late 40s, but the bottom line is I think her mission was, I think was a serious mission about rape and abuse, sexual abuse. But the Me Too movement has stretched beyond just really rape and sexual abuse. Most of it is about harassment, which is spread throughout the world, the United States for sure, and has taken on a whole new tone. So anybody that touches somebody, especially male to female, and they want to file a claim of harassment, it's going to be, welcomed and well taken. But anybody can file any case against anybody anyway for anything. It's always been like that. So that's the way the law works. But in relationship to the legality of harassment itself, and people will abuse something to their benefit, but harassment is simply when someone, picks on another person or aggravates another person and won't leave them alone. Really in the phrase of stalking more so. When it comes into that, then it's a serious form of harassment. That's why people file restraining orders against folks when they won't leave them alone. So I was charged with stalking. And that's a whole nother story. It took me 3 years to beat that because it was by a white woman and was false accused because I had first had her arrested for something, for stealing. She was stealing and I had her arrested. And she hired an attorney and that attorney collaborated with the judge and they put me in jail. The judge let me out right after that. He bailed me out himself, knowing that he was out of order. But I had to go through the system of beating it. But that's a whole nother story. But back to harassment. So, as you know, if you've followed any of my tapes and you've been dealing with me, or even if it's your first time, I'm always going to address everything in relationship to where God's stand is. And where does God stand in relationship to harassment? Now we know God is against killing and stealing, and we know these things. We know he's against rape. The Bible makes certain things clear. But rape in the sense that a person is abusing another person. The Bible talks against abusing, harming another person, doing harm to an individual, because it commands us to love. And of course, rape is not love. But these harassment cases, and harassment within itself is not rape, but it is something that can bring some harm if it's done over long periods of time. If somebody just says something to you at once or here or there, it's usually not harassment per se. But a lot of people are being harmed in the workforce behind harassment and are innocent of the actual definition of harassment. But in relationship to the Bible doesn't really speak about harassment. It doesn't really address harassment per se. Now you got a few peculiar things where, somebody has made requests, to the judge for certain things, like the lady that kept going before the judge, begging and begging for him to help her, and he eventually helped her based on her continuous coming to him. But harassment, the only thing I can tell you that as a servant of God is that it's a worldly, it's a channel of the world, and the world can take it and use it however they wish to use it. They can use it to their benefit, they can use it, for an actual case that has been harassed, or where someone has felt they're being harassed. But the Bible doesn't address it, so where does God really stand when it comes to harassment? How does he really, where does he put that? How does he relate to that? Well, there's things that wasn't really addressed in the Bible, and I think they weren't really addressed because they didn't have the highest importance on it. And harassment is one of them. There's not a great amount of importance when it comes to harassment, because harassment is the definition of one person's understanding of it, and everybody has a different understanding of it. So there's different phases of harassment, the different interpretations of harassment. So the Bible left that out, and God leaves it out because it's not something that is important. Now don't mix that up. Don't mix my prophecy on harassment mixed up with rape and sexual abuse. Those are different issues. When you sexually abuse somebody, you didn't went past the frame of harassing a person. You're doing bodily harm to a person. But if you say something and give a woman a compliment, like, wow, you're beautiful, I would like to take you out, that's not going to be phrased as harassment. That's just an approach. Now, I guess if you continue to do that on a consistent basis over a period of time, then it becomes aggravating. You haven't did the person a whole lot of harm, but yeah, you're aggravating the person, and they can assume that you're harassing me, and then it could become an issue. That's usually not the case with all these cases of harassment that comes up. Usually it's someone touching somebody. They like to say groping. So if someone puts their arms around somebody, that's, considered harassment. If they didn't want to be touched. According to the law, it's more than even harassment. If you touch somebody that don't want to be touched, you can be charged with assault. Even though you didn't do them no real harm, it's if someone doesn't desire to be touched, then you can be charged with harassment. You can be charged with assault. I mean, that's the law. That's the way the law is written, man's law. God's law don't address it in that manner. He doesn't put emphasis on touching someone, He does put emphasis on other things in relationship to abusing a person and misusing your authority over a person. So all that is addressed, and that comes back on people. But in relationship to God, all I can say is He's not a God that deals with man's issues as men see them. See, men and women alike put a great amount of emphasis on things that God tells you not to put a great amount of emphasis on. And what people are saying to you, even though it can be offensive, God doesn't put a great amount of emphasis on it. He's more concerned with what you're saying to someone yourself. Now you're going to answer for your words. And the Bible says you're going to give account for every idle word you speak. So there is an accountability for all things that you state and say. But to just say God is against harassment and God is focused, he's too big. He's not going to put any great amount of emphasis. If he did, it would be in the word strong. It would be something that was emphasized strong. That's why even in the legal system, harassment hasn't really became a strong thing. Mostly if you're harassing someone, you'll get a restraining order against them. And that's it. And they'll have to stay a certain amount of distance, 5 yards, 5 miles, whatever, away from you. And that's usually the greater amount of the damage that you will cause yourself behind harassing someone. But it's gone beyond that, because the human beings have taken something and they love to capitalize on it and use it to their advantage. And that's what's taking place in the world today with the Me Too movement for the most part. Now, there has always been rape and abuse, and that's not tolerant if it's found out about, no matter what. So, and everybody knows that if you're caught, and rape is exposed, then you're going to be, you're going to be charged, rape charge, and you're going to do some time. No doubt, no questions about it. If you're found guilty, you're going to do some time for rape. Same thing for molestation. If you're found out and you're going to do some time behind sexual molestation. But for the most part, black men have been put in prison, and recently they've also been put in prison a lot behind the form of rape, which was not really rape when two people, agree to do something and they're of age. But if they're not of age, which a lot of young men, because I counseled a lot in this area, got charges put against them when they was about 16 or 17 for being with a woman underage at 14 and so on. Now, is that something inappropriate in this system we live in, the society that we're in, the United States? It is. And you will be brought up in charges, but they have taken advantage of that to lock a lot of young black men up, I believe. Along first the drug situation with the drugs happened, and then when that kind of mellowed out, then they came up with something else. And that's why you look in the prison system and you'll see more black people in jail than any number, and which is crazy because 75% of whites are in the United States, and there's only less than 18% blacks. So that tells you, okay, this ain't adding up. That means blacks are the only ones out there committing crimes and raping and drugs and the whole 9 yards. Another subject, but I think I made my point on harassment, and I'm going to leave it at that. I say God's not focusing on that. Now, men, yes, we are, yes, no doubt. And we're going to take things and use it to our advantage. But the Father, He's not focusing on harassment, so it's not an issue there. I don't think the young lady that phrased and first came up with that was really intentions was on harassment as it was just rape and sexual abuse. And I did a little research, so I know that's where she was really coming from. That was her majority, and especially against blacks and black women. That's where she was coming from. So anyway, that's it. It's Dr. Chaz. If you found this to be fruitful in some form or fashion, give a like and tune in, subscribe, and catch some more of my videos. All right, I'm going to follow this up with another video as well, pertaining to the Me Too movement. Above all things, be blessed.